from Singapore. Both Devakinandan Prabhu and Radhika Mataji have been in ISKCON for many years. Particularly Prabhuji, he started his Krishna consciousness at the age of 14, and it has been 40 years since then he has been practicing Krishna consciousness. And he and Mataji both, they are the foremost disciples of Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Mahavishnu Goswami Maharaj. And they are not the disciples just for the namesake, but they have been serving Maharaj by following his instructions. They have taken Maharaj's instructions to the core of their hearts. And Prabhuji, in addition to doing his own sadhana and managing his own office, law office in Singapore, he is expertly managing the global legal affairs of the governing body of Commissioner, that's the apex body in our ISKCON. So that's it also seva he's been doing for many years now. And in the past also Prabhuji has visited several times, but this is the first time Mataji has joined him. So it's like a bonus for us. So we are so fortunate and so happy to have both of them with us. And we would like to welcome them by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra 3 times lovingly and with devotion. Jai Kinkar Beta. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. जय His Grace देवकीनंदन प्रभु की जय, राधिका माता जी की जय, समस्त भक्त वृंद की जय,
जय श्री प्रभुपाद की जय, जय श्री गुरुदेव की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। राधा माधव कुंज बिहार, जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी, जय गोपी जनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी, जय गोपी जनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी, यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन, यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन, यमुना तीरा वनचारी, यमुना तीरा वनचारी, यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय श्री रुक्मी द्वारकाधीश की जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय श्रील गुरुदेव की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। वासुदेवाय। So thank you very much, Prabhus and Matajis, for coming together today. And let us hear from a very nice shloka from Srimad Bhagavad Gita entitled Chapter 3, Text 9, and the title of the chapter is Karma Yoga. It's a very important verse, and it gives us a very important understanding on the concept of sacrifice, which is a very important part of successful devotional service. So let's chant the verse together, not very difficult. 3:9 of Bhagavad Gita. Yajñārtāt karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha artam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara yajñārtāt karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha artam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara yajñārtāt karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha artam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Prabhus.
यज्ञातात् कर्मणो अन्यत्र लोकोऽयं कर्मबन्धनः तदर्थं कर्म कौन्तेय मुक्तसङ्गः समाचर।
यज्ञातात् कर्मणो न्यत्र लोकोऽयं कर्मबन्धनः तदर्थं कर्म कौन्तेय मुक्तसङ्गः समाचर।
Matajis.
यज्ञातात् कर्मणो न्यत्र लोकोऽयं कर्मबन्धनः तदर्थं कर्म कौन्तेय
यज्ञार्थात् कर्मणोऽन्यत्र
लोकोऽयं कर्मबन्धनः
लोकोऽयं कर्मबन्धनः
तदर्थं कर्म कौन्तेय
तदर्थं कर्म कौन्तेय
मुक्तसङ्गः समाचर
मुक्तसङ्गः समाचर
Yajna arthat, done only for the sake of yajna or Vishnu. Karmanaha, then work. Anyatra, otherwise. Lokaha, world. Ayam, this. Karma bandhanaha, bondage by work. Tat, of him. Artham, for the sake. Karma, work. Kaunteya, O son of Kunti. Mukta Sangha, liberated from association. Samachara, do perfectly. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Please repeat the translation. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction. And in that way, you will always remain free from bondage. Please hear the purport. Since one has to work even for the simple maintenance of the body, the prescribed duties for a particular social position and quality are so made that that purpose can be fulfilled. Yajna means Lord Vishnu, or sacrificial performances. All sacrificial performances also are meant for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu. The Vedas enjoin Yajno Vai Vishnuho. In other words, the same purpose is served whether one performs prescribed yajnas or directly serves Lord Vishnu. Krishna consciousness is therefore performance of yajna as it is prescribed in this verse. The Varnashrama institution also aims at satisfying Lord Vishnu. Varnashramara charavata purushena paraha kuman Vishnu aradhyate. Vishnu Puran 388. Therefore, one has to work for the satisfaction of Vishnu. Any other work done in this material world will be a cause for bondage. For both good and evil work have their reactions, and any reaction binds the performer. Therefore, one has to work in Krishna consciousness to satisfy Krishna or Vishnu. And while performing such activities, one is in a liberated stage. This is the great art of doing work. And in the beginning, this process requires very expert guidance. One should therefore act very diligently under the expert guidance of a devotee of Lord Krishna, or under the direct instruction of Lord Krishna himself, under whom Arjuna had the opportunity to work. Nothing should be performed for sense gratification, but everything should be done for the satisfaction of Krishna. This practice will not only save one from the reaction of work, but also gradually elevate one to transcendental loving service of the Lord, which alone can raise one to the kingdom of God. Om Agnyam Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavasya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangye राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम्ने गौरे द्विषे नमः वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Thank you, Chaitanya Prabhu. Mataji, thank you very much for having us today. Very happy to be here. And now we want to hear this very important point that Krishna is giving to Arjuna. He's saying two very important principles here. And one of the most important things that we must understand is that when we take up any activity, we must learn that that activity has to be performed for the satisfaction of Krishna. This is a very important point. When you perform any activity in this world, generally speaking, the activity will have to do with your work. All of us are working. And very often our work takes up more time than the time you spend even with family. Isn't it true? You want to spend time with family, but you realize in Kali Yuga, our time spent at work, with our colleagues, with our bosses, and just trying to work and earn a salary is very often longer, and it takes more time than even being with the devotees and even with the family. So therefore, Krishna is telling Arjuna the secret of doing work. If our consciousness when we perform our work is not correct, then it is going to have an effect on us. If our consciousness when we are performing work or any duty that we have, if the consciousness is correct, then Krishna says we will become free from work. The secret of this is to make sure that we do it for the satisfaction of Krishna. That is very important. Very often we perform work or we perform any activity, and that is true. We normally perform it for the satisfaction of ourselves. Right? If we don't perform it for the satisfaction of ourselves, at least we say, I'm earning this much money and I'm doing it for the satisfaction of my family or to my wife or my children. That is there. So there are two steps to this. Very often we are caught up with satisfying our own senses. But Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita tells us we should learn to live not just for ourselves, but we must learn to live for others. That is a higher principle of life. Actually, even if you meet a person who doesn't believe in God, and if you find that person is sacrificing for someone else, you realize that that person has the capacity to become a devotee. Because one of the great spiritual values in life is actually to be able to do something for the satisfaction of someone else. At least that principle should be there, right? Otherwise what will happen is we'll all become very selfish individuals. And you realize in life, no one likes a person who's selfish. Isn't it true? As you were growing up, you must have met friends who actually only were friending you or befriending you because of what they could get from you, right? And sometimes there are such friends in our lives also. Have you met the friend who calls you once a year? And when you know when he calls you or she calls you, it's not because they really love you or they're asking how you're doing. It's really because they will start by asking how you're doing, long time never hear, and then they will have to ask you for something. And it'll never be for you, it'll be for them. In English we call it fair weather friends, you know. When the weather is good, they are friends. When the weather is not good, you don't see them anymore. So that comes from the principle of being selfish. We may think that we are devotees now, and we may think at the moment, because we are devotees, by nature we are not selfish. But actually, we have to be very careful. Supposing I come for the program, and I'm going to find a place to sit. I want the best place, because I want the best view. And somebody else says, Prabhu, can you move a bit? Why should I move? You see this happening, huh? You know, or Mataji, you know, give some space, someone older, can they sit on the chair? You know? And then they say, no, I have to sit here, I don't want to move. You've been on a plane, right? And someone sits there and somebody asks, you know, excuse me, I and my husband, we want to sit together, can you just sit the next seat? Why should I move? It's like that, you know. So when that happens, you realize that we don't have the capacity to sacrifice for a higher cause. Because when you want to satisfy yourself, your sacrifice is very low. You don't have to sacrifice so much because the motive is there. And whatever you do, you don't feel like you're sacrificing because the results are coming to you. So you're happy. But when you sacrifice for a higher cause or for someone other than yourself, you will realize that you have to give up more. If you think about it, it's a very important principle. That is why this whole verse, 3:9, is a very important verse for all of us because we are all working. Whether you're a housewife at home, whether you're working hard to earn money, the principle of work is always there. And Krishna says very nicely here, work that is done must be done. You cannot not perform work. Nobody seated in this room is at the moment inactive. I can see so much activity going on, right? And the longer I take the class, the longer and more frequent the activity will be. Because you get restless, you start moving, you move here. Already I'm seeing these children, they can't keep still. Moving here, moving there, putting hands in the pocket, taking it out, smiling at each other, you know, like little monkeys, they're all doing that. They can't keep still. But even then, they're at least not making noise, so that's good. You know, and you have to look at each other. We are trying to be still, but we can't, right? And sometimes we may be sleepy, sometimes we may be, you know, we may be tired, so we keep moving. So activity is part of consciousness. Consciousness symptom is activity. And therefore, Krishna is saying a very important thing. Whatever that you perform, any activity, it must be done not for your satisfaction. It can be done for your satisfaction. If it is done for your satisfaction, then what happens? Loko yam karma bandhanaha. Bandhanaha in Sanskrit means it binds you. Right? Bandhan, it binds you. It's not a good thing. Why? Because you come back to this world. Or in this life you have to suffer or enjoy. In other words, you will be afflicted by the law of karma. You cannot escape from it. You can't. And the whole point of spiritual life is to eventually stop your karmas. Because as long as karmas are there, actions, reactions. Actions, reactions. Some people say the aim of spiritual life is to collect good karma. But that is not the aim of spiritual life. That is actually the aim of a materialist. The materialist wants to collect good karma so that he can enjoy the results of it. But he doesn't realize, like everything else in life, good karma also has an ending. And it will be replaced by bad karma. So either way, you're going to come back to this world. Because only in this world you will have good and bad karma. There's no other way. So we must realize, first of all, do not perform Krishna consciousness and devotional service thinking that you are going to get some brownie points from it. You know brownie points? Like you get good points, you know. Krishna consciousness is not meant to be performed that way. No. It must come from the heart. And it must be a sacrifice for a higher cause. This is very important. In our Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 8th chapter, 1st canto, and I think it's the 15th shloka, no, 14th shloka, 8.1.14. In the purport, and in the last paragraph, in the first paragraph, last line of the purport, Srila Prabhupada makes a very powerful statement relating to satisfaction. He says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is actually the enjoyer of all sacrifices. Very important point. This sacrifice here doesn't just mean one yajna. You know, sometimes we do homams, we do yajnas, we call the purohit, or sometimes we set up, you know, in this havan, and you do all the sacrifice. That is only a small portion of yajna. Actually, sacrifice means any activity where you give up something for something higher. That is the meaning of sacrifice. So we should be very clear what sacrifice is here. Okay? Now, Prabhupada says the Supreme Personality of Godhead is actually the enjoyer. He is the enjoyer of all sacrifices. In other words, when we perform something for the satisfaction of Krishna, He enjoys it. That is very important, not we. And Prabhupada says here, therefore, if we begin our activities for His satisfaction, this is very important. If we begin our activity for His satisfaction, you know what happens to us? Prabhupada says we will gradually lose our taste for material activities. Amazing point. We are all trying as devotees how to lose taste for material activities. Because when you have taste for material activities, you keep wanting to enjoy it and there's no end to it. You will say, today this is enough. Okay, my neighbor got an upgrade, went to a bigger flat. Just this time I want to get one more bigger flat. After that, I promise it will never happen. But you know it won't happen, isn't it? It will happen. Your neighbor buys a new car, you think, oh, 5 years already I have a car, maybe I should buy a new car. And then you say, no, this is the last time. When we were young, I'm sure the kids will know, when I was young, I remember, during that time, Star Wars was actually the big movie. I don't know how many of you, remember Star Wars. And they used to sell these action figures. So I used to tell my mother, I'll just buy this one action figure. After that, I promise you, I'll never buy it for the whole month, or 2 months, or 3 months, Depending on how desperate I was, it was a longer period. Because I had to show her that I'm very, very satisfied with it. So my mother would say, okay, fine. This is the only toy for 6 months now. Okay, fine. I said, definitely. Nothing else I need. But after 1 month, the new action figure will come. And then I will tell my mother, Mama, just this one time. This is the last of the last. After this, never happens again. And my mother will first make long face and after that, okay, fine, this is the last of the last, right? Finish. Then 3rd month, new action figure will come. So actually, when we try to perform an activity for our satisfaction, there is no satisfaction. There is no satisfaction. Because if there was, you would stop there and you say, I'm very happy. But it doesn't happen that way. Because we are trying to do something for our satisfaction. So every time, Prabhus and Matajis, you do not feel self-satisfied, then please introspect on your activities. Something about your activities you are doing, not for His satisfaction, but for your satisfaction. That is the reason why we cannot become self-satisfied. We are asking how to become self-satisfied, but that is the secret. And that's why Prabhupada says, if you begin your activity for His satisfaction, Prabhupada guarantees us, we will gradually lose taste for the material activities. And when you lose taste for material activities, you'll be very happy in spiritual life. Whatever that comes, you will accept it as yajna, as Krishna's mercy. But for you to do that, you must actually forego something for something higher. That is the definition of sacrifice. There must be a higher goal. There must be a higher aim. Otherwise, it is not sacrifice. And you must be prepared to actually sacrifice. So today, we want to understand what are the characteristics of sacrifice based on Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. There are only 2 or 3. Not very difficult. But try to hear. The first thing about sacrifice that Shastras tell us is that sacrifice is not easy. That's why it's sacrifice, right? If something is very easy, actually you haven't sacrificed. Supposing, we ask you now, we need to raise some collection. How much must you pay? $10. Actually, you have $200 in your pocket. $10 is not a sacrifice. I hope you understand that. $10 is not a sacrifice. You may think, Prabhu, $10, but you have 200 in the bank, in the pocket. But you won't tell us you have 200, you see. You say, I only have $10. Radhanath Maharaj in one lecture, one very famous lecture many years ago, he said something very important. He said, Krishna is never interested in what you are giving Him. He is only interested in what you are not giving Him. Because what you are not giving Him is the thing you don't want to sacrifice. The thing you want to give, actually you can afford. It's okay, it's not a problem, you can. Now, we are all coming together now, right? And Prabhu Mataji must have cooked a feast actually, right? Nobody is going to sit here and say after that, you know what, I'm going to forego the feast because I'm going to sacrifice it. No, you won't. You won't forego the feast because it's very difficult to forego the feast, right? My point is, and Bhagavatam's point is, you must feel the pinch when you sacrifice. This is the first thing. There must be some difficulty. Mangalarti is a good example of sacrifice. Who jumps out of bed, in ecstasy at 4 in the morning and say, I want to chant? Kinkar Prabhu is laughing. Nobody does that, right? Nobody jumps up and say, oh, I'm really happy to do, especially when you have a full day of work and you're tired. Nobody does that. If I were to continue speaking for 3 hours here and not stop because I'm diving very deep into sacrifice, you think about it. After a while, right, you will not be able to sacrifice your time. You can't take it. So there must be the pinch. Any activity that you do, there must be a pinch. Because if we don't do that, then it is not considered sacrifice. In Bhagavatam, you'll find, that all the great personalities, they sacrificed. They had to give up something which was very easy for something that was very difficult. But they did it for the satisfaction of Krishna. And when they did that, they never felt bad. Oh, I've lost so much because I've sacrificed. No. In fact, they felt more satisfaction. They felt more satisfaction. So please remember, sacrifice must never be easy. All of you have come together today, Saturday night. You must have sacrificed something to come here. It wasn't easy. Maybe you feel it's easy because we are devotees. But you have given up something. That's why you are here. It's not easy. And that Krishna values. Every time you sacrifice your time for Krishna, that Krishna values. Right? You may say, no, I love to spend time with Krishna. I'm just giving my time. But for Krishna, he knows how valuable time is. And he becomes very happy when he sees you giving time. So all of you here today, especially the youngsters here, you all could definitely be somewhere else, jumping and playing. In fact, many programs I go, the youngsters will sit here 5 minutes, after that all run into the room. But all of them have lasted longer than 5 minutes. Right? So I don't know whether they'll go to the room later. But now, he said yes. But right now, right, their sacrifice is pleasing Krishna very much. And he's blessing them actually. So the next question we ask ourselves is, why we must sacrifice? And Bhagavatam tells us that whenever we sacrifice, right, whatever we are sacrificing for must be worth more than what we are giving up. This is very important. And this is common sense. You will never spend on something where you are losing. You will only give something and sacrifice something when the gain is greater than the loss. That is what you do. Even in material world we do that actually. In Krishna consciousness, sacrifice doesn't mean that you perform an extraordinary activity. This is very important. Sacrifice means you can perform the same activity as someone else, but you're doing it for his satisfaction. Whereas the other person is doing the same activity, but for their satisfaction. You see? That's another component of sacrifice that's very important. A very good example of that actually is, the example of sacrificing your ego. When you want to perform something, when you want to perform an activity which is difficult, but you do it for the satisfaction of Krishna, Krishna becomes very happy because you are hearing him. If Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, please give up meat eating, please give up onion, garlic, please give up tea and coffee, it's very difficult for us. Most of us, right, whether we like it or not, we grew up in an atmosphere where if you didn't have coffee in the morning or tea in the afternoon, you'd be dead. Some people have withdrawal symptoms actually. They can't take it. Some people get headache actually. I know of one devotee who loved his tea so much that just before he got initiated, and he was initiated by Srila Prabhupada in Fiji, you know what he did? He made a big pot of tea, kept it burning, sat down for the initiation. Then he turned to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, I'm going to take initiation. After this, no more tea. Prabhupada said, yes, no more tea. So, can I drink tea one last time? And Prabhupada said, go and finish it. But after that, no more. And he drank a whole big pot of tea, came back, sat down, sacrificed, took the vows, and never touched tea again. The point is actually that sometimes we don't want to hear. When you don't want to hear a higher authority telling you what is good for your spiritual life, you're not sacrificing. So sacrifice actually entails obedience to a higher law. That is very important. That's why Krishna says in 331 of Bhagavad Gita, right? What is that? 331. I remember the verse name, but I forget. 331. What is that? It is Ye me matam idam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto anasuyanto tepi muchanti karmabihi. Very important verse. Krishna says in that verse, Ye me matam. Matam means injunctions. Injunctions means rules. Very often when we take up a higher rule, when we take up something which is a higher mission or even a work, there'll always be rules. You have to follow them. Nobody can work in an environment where there's no rules. But to the extent that you follow the rules, to that extent you are sacrificing your freedom, but in place of that, you are actually pleasing someone else. When you perform your work very nicely, you're sacrificing so many things, but you please your boss. In the same way, in Krishna consciousness, when you follow the instructions of Krishna, with faith, shraddhavanto, and without envy, anasuyanto, very important, without envy. Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, Kamsa, they were all demons, not because they looked like demons, because they could never follow the instructions of Krishna. And that is a demonic quality. When you cannot follow the instructions of a higher authority, something is seriously wrong, because it's very difficult to sacrifice. Very hard to sacrifice. But when you sacrifice because a higher authority has told you to do it, and you do it, that gains the blessings of the higher authority. We are all children to parents, isn't it? Whether we're very young or at our age. Whenever our parents have asked us to do something which is not easy for us, but we have sacrificed for them, you know how much blessings you have gotten from your parents? And you know how pleased your parents become with you? In the same way, if we sacrifice something for Krishna, which is not easy, do you know how pleased he will be? He will become very pleased. That's why Krishna tells Arjuna in 18th chapter, I think the verse starts from 54, 55, no 57, sorry 57, 1857. Krishna tells Arjuna this very important thing. Chetasaha sarva karmani Mayi sannyasa mat paraha buddhi yoga upashrityam matchitta satatam bhava. Now Arjuna, remember, is on the battlefield, and he has been thinking, should I fight, should I not fight? And now Krishna in these few verses tells him something very important. The first thing he tells him, Arjuna, in all your activities you depend on me. This is an important ingredient for sacrifice. We can sacrifice for Krishna when we depend on him. Why? Because only the higher your dependence on Krishna, the more you are sacrificing your ego, your false ego. Otherwise what happens is we think we don't need God. We don't need anyone. I can do it on my own. But you all know in life, nobody can do anything on their own. Everyone needs someone to help them. Whether by prayer, or by even well-wishing, or by support. How much more we need our Creator's help. Without Him, we can't even breathe. We can't even control our heartbeat. Do you know how amazing Krishna has made our body? This heart doesn't stop beating. Every day we want some time to rest, right? Imagine if the heart told us, just today I want to stop for a while. It's over. It's over. But we want to rest. But our heart should not rest. See how Krishna has made everything perfect. You just look at the aeroplane. The aeroplane needs a long runway before it lands. Look at the mosquito that Krishna has made. No landing pad needed. No runway needed. Right? The mosquito can land like a plane. It can land like a helicopter. But you know, in material world, aeroplane and helicopter are completely different. One takes off this way, one has to land this way. But the mosquito can do it that way. Krishna made it. So we take for granted, that everything we have is coming from Krishna. And that's why it's difficult to sacrifice. That's why Prabhupada says in the purport of 8.1.14, we must accept that Krishna is the enjoyer of all sacrifices because he created everything. If you create something, you enjoy it. But you all know that we can't create anything. Whatever we are creating is coming from Krishna only. That's how it's coming. So please remember this point. Sacrifice. Krishna tells Arjuna in 1857, in all your activities you depend on me and you work always under my protection in such devotional service. If you do that, become fully conscious of me. Now Krishna says, therefore he's telling us, become dependent. In other words, sacrifice your independence. Sacrifice this desire to always be independent. If you sacrifice your desire for independence, what will happen? In the next verse 1858 he says, Machchitta sarva durgani. Sarva durgani means impediments. Sarva means all. Machchitta, if you are conscious of me, then Machchitta sarva durgani mat prasada tarisyasi. By my mercy, whatever impediments that come before you, whatever obstacles there are, by my mercy, you will be able to cross over them. Beautiful point. This is the result of sacrifice. If you sacrifice your false ego, Krishna will clear the obstacles for your consciousness. He will clear it. He will clear it. And then Krishna says, however, now this is very important, mat prasada tarisyasi, right? Now in the same shloka, atachetvam ahankaram, ahankar you all know, is false ego. If however, Arjuna, if you decide not to work for me, and you are guided by your false ego, in other words, you don't sacrifice your false ego, you work the way you want, you don't work for Krishna, then what happens to you? Then na shroyasi vinangshasi. Then what will happen is, you will perform that work, but you will be lost, because you will not hear me. So sacrifice means to sacrifice your ego. That is really yajna. That is the meaning of sacrifice. Now Krishna then goes on to say, Yat ahankaram ashrityaha. If you take shelter of the false ego, your false ego, if you think I know everything, I don't need to listen to anyone, then what happens to you? Na yotsya iti manyate. You don't listen to anybody. Then Krishna says, Mityesa vyavasayaste. By your nature, prakritis, tvam niyakshasi. By your own nature, you will fight. Whether or not you say, now I don't fight, but I tell you, you have to fight under my direction. And you say, no, I don't want to fight. I want to go to the cave and become Sadhu Baba. What Krishna is saying is, yes, you will go to the cave, but your nature is to fight. You are Kshatriya. You'll end up fighting with all the sadhus. That's what will happen. Wherever you go, your nature is to fight. Have you noticed some people's nature is to fight? Have you noticed that? Even if you are very peaceful, right? They will fight with you. They will. You all are smiling like you know. Huh? Yeah. It happens. Have you met some people who are really sadhus? No matter how much you provoke them, right? Their temperature is always low. And because their temperature is low, your temperature goes higher. Isn't it? You feel like killing them, but they're sadhus. They're not moving. They're very calm. So nature is something that we forget. But Krishna says to sacrifice means to rise above your nature. So Arjuna, accept that I'm telling you to fight. Fight on the battlefield, because that's where your work is needed. Your work is not needed in the cave to fight with the sadhus. This is very important. And we're all working, right? So we can relate to this. And so Krishna says now, under your illusion, swabhava jena kaunteya, nibbadda svena karmana, kartum nikchasi anmohan. Illusion. Karishyasi avaso pitat. Krishna ends this discussion by saying, under illusion, you are now declining to act according to my direction. But eventually, compelled by the work that is born out of your nature, you will act all the same, O son of Kunti. Very important. The materialists will never accept what Krishna wants him to do. The demons are like that. That is why you will know, you remember the churning of the milk ocean, Prabhus, Matajis? Remember the Devatas were on one side, and then the Asuras were on the other side? Krishna told them to make truce, come together. Vasuki was the serpent, and Mount Meru, right, became the pivot, and they started churning the ocean. Now, what was the object of the churning? Amrit. The Devatas wanted Amrit because without Amrit they were losing to the demons. The demons wanted Amrit because the Devatas wanted Amrit. That's the nature of demons. The nature of demon is, if you want something, I also want something, but I want it because you want it. It may not serve me much cause, but you want it, right? So I'll deny you that. That is demonic behavior. So of course the demons also wanted Amrit because they wanted to defeat the Devatas. Now, Bhagavatam tells us one very important thing, and this verse is really nice. It's in 8, 9, 28 of Srimad Bhagavatam. There it is nicely stated by Shukadev Goswami. Evam surasuragana samadesha kalaha etvarta karma matayopi phale vikalpaha tatramritam suragana phalam anjasapu yatpada pankaja raja Shranayana Daityaha. The translation is very nice. The place, the time, the cause, the purpose, the activity, and the ambition were all the same for both the Devatas and the Asuras. Think about it. The time was the same. They were all there at the same time. Place, churning of the milk ocean. The cause, why they came there, Amrit. The purpose, Amrit. The activity, churning. The goal, the ambition, Amrit. They were all the same. Both parties, they were all the same. But there was a difference. The Devatas, the shloka tells us, achieved one result. They got the Amrit in the end. But the demons achieved another result. They had no Amrit. You remember, right? At the end of the churning, Dhanvantri came with Amrit. And when Dhanvantri came with Amrit, the Devatas were told by Krishna before they started, Amrit will come at the end. Don't jump after the Amrit. Don't even go after it. Just wait. Just wait. Even if the Asuras take it, you be calm. You know that's very difficult. You know how difficult it is. You think about it. Bhagavatam is very practical. You know how difficult your opponent is getting something, and you are told by Krishna, don't go after it. Just be patient. It will come. Wait. Very hard. And so finally when Amrit came, and the Devatas saw Amrit, the demons said, Amrit. What did the demons do? They jumped on the Amrit. They caught hold of Amrit from Dhanvantri and they started fighting with each other about the Amrit. Now the Devatas' instinct was, we have to also get the Amrit. After all, that's why we are there. The purpose is there. But all of them remembered Krishna's instruction. They pulled the brakes on the car because they remembered Krishna's instruction. Krishna said, don't go after the Amrit. We may think, Krishna, the whole point is to get Amrit. But why you are telling me not to? But they had faith. Shraddhavanto, anasuyanto. No envy, only faith. And faith is only there when there is absence of envy. This is Bhagavatam's secret. If you want to have faith in Krishna, we must remove envy. Not just to Krishna, but to the living entities who are created by Krishna. And the Devatas had no envy in their hearts because they wanted to follow Krishna's instruction. Very important. That's why they're Devatas. They may not be pure devotees, but they are much exalted than we are. Never forget that. Sometimes after we take up Krishna consciousness, we condemn all the Devatas. They're all second rate, third rate, they don't know what they're doing. No. They are more exalted than we are. We can't even touch the dust of their feet. And see how they proved it. They proved it because the Devatas are always under the shelter of the dust of the Lord's lotus feet. They could eventually drink nectar very easily. And they could get the result. So Krishna says, the demons, however, they did not seek shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. And therefore, they were unable to achieve the result they wanted. So this is a very important point. Please remember that when we want to actually sacrifice, we have to sacrifice our ego. Arjuna was told to sacrifice his ego. Arjuna, and so were the Devatas. This was a question of ego, The demons on that side and we on this side. Why are we fighting? We're fighting because of the ego. Why do two people fight? 90% of the time we fight because of ego, isn't it? At the end, when you strip all the things, it's because I'm right, you are wrong. That's what we do. But the Devatas were not interested in that. They were interested in following Krishna. We must learn to sacrifice our false ego, and then we will follow Krishna. That will satisfy Krishna. That is yajna. That is the real meaning of yajna actually. Another good example is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You all know Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's non-different from Krishna. One day after Rath Yatra, he came back to I think it was Gopinath Acharya's house or Srivas Thakur's house. But he was so tired that he didn't take prasadam. He just lay down, just at the door like that. And then he told Govinda, his servant, Govinda, you please massage my feet. So Govinda massaged the Lord's feet on that side. Okay? And then after that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I'm going to take rest now. After you finish massaging the feet, you cross over and go and have prasadam. That means he had to cross over Mahaprabhu. And you all know that it is not proper etiquette to cross over anybody. What to speak of Mahaprabhu? Because the house is, this body, the sharir is temple of God. You don't cross like that. If you want to go through, you put your hand like that and you walk through. But you don't touch anything. But 45 minutes later, Mahaprabhu woke up and he saw Govinda sitting at the same place, never moved. So he said, Govinda, why have you not gone to take prasadam? Why? Because just before that, when Mahaprabhu had laid down, he had just laid down because he was very tired. Then when he called Govinda to massage his feet, Govinda was on this side. And Mahaprabhu said, come over this side to come there to actually massage my feet. And Govinda said, Lord, I cannot cross over you. Mahaprabhu said, but you need to massage me. And so Govinda crossed over. And actually the injunction is, if you cross over the Lord, you go to hell. So Mahaprabhu was thinking, you crossed over me one time, isn't it? You're going to hell anyway. Now why don't you cross over to have prasadam? But Govinda became silent. But Mahaprabhu could read his heart. Because Govinda was prepared to go to hell. He was prepared to sacrifice his constitutional position as the servant of Mahaprabhu. He was prepared to go to hell just so that he could perform service to the Lord. He was ready to do that. It is a higher principle. But when he came to satisfying his own stomach to eat prasadam, then he thought, why should I cross over the Lord? If I do that, I'm doing it for my satisfaction. Such a simple scene, such a simple action, but what a deep point that we can learn about sacrifice. This is sacrifice. That when we have to do, the gopis were another example. You remember that Narada Muni was asking Krishna, who are the greatest devotees in all the worlds? Spiritual sky, material sky. And Krishna said, without doubt the gopis. And Krishna said, Narada said, I have a list. There are many good devotees. Krishna said, you go to all of them and you ask them for the dust of their lotus feet. Why? Because I'm having a transcendental headache. And therefore only the dust from the lotus feet of devotees will cure me. You all know if you take the dust of your lotus feet and you put it on Krishna, you will go to hell. Because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Another injunction. But everybody Narada went to, they all said, tell me what to do. Krishna has a headache. We are prepared to do anything. But when he asked, give me your lotus feet, dust from lotus feet, they said, no. That we can't. But when he went to see the gopis, what did they do? They started digging the earth. First they started stepping everywhere, like mad people. They started stepping everywhere, then they dug up the earth where they stepped. Narada said, why are you jumping around? And they said, Krishna's headache is bad. We need to get bagfuls of dust so that you pour it on Krishna's head and the headache will go. That's it, you just do that. It's like Hanumanji, He one time saw Sita Mata putting kumkum on herself, isn't it? And then he asked her why, and she said it's for protection of Krishna, of Lord Ram. Next day he came completely full of kumkum. He looked completely, ridiculous. But he sacrificed that. Because he said, if little bit can protect him, I must put all over my body, then it will protect him. This is what is important for devotees. the Devatas in the churning of the milk ocean sacrificed their egos to hear Krishna. And that actually got them shelter of Krishna. The objective of Amrit came to them. They didn't lose anything. So even though in sacrifice you may appear to lose something, but in the long run, you never lose anything. Because what you actually gain is the satisfaction of serving Krishna. And that is very, very important. Very important. So we live for the satisfaction of others. Because if we don't do that, then it's very difficult. Now, the next point about sacrifice is sacrifice by nature must be voluntary. Swayam Prabhu cannot put a gun to somebody's head and say, Prabhu, wake up for Mangalarti tomorrow. Of course you wake up, right? But that's not what he's going to do. Swayam Prabhu will inspire you to wake up for Mangalarti. How many of you became inspired to become devotees because of Swayam Prabhu's persistence, because of his love, because of his care? I know, all the hands will go up. He never gave up on all of you, isn't it? He didn't. So how much sacrifice he and Mataji would have given just to make you all devotees, just to bring you all to Krishna. This is very important. And this mood of a devotee is best seen in Bhagavatam by Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva in the 8th canto, 7th chapter, 42nd verse, he says a very important thing. Tapyante lokatapena sadavaha prayasho janaha paramam aradhanam taddihi purusha akila atmanaha. Very important shloka, right? Tapyante lokatapena. He says to Parvati that it is said that great personalities almost always, what do? They almost always accept voluntary suffering on behalf of others. So when you sacrifice, it must be voluntary. Don't sacrifice because I've got no choice, I have to sacrifice. It is some kind of sacrifice, but it's the kind where Krishna pushes you to the end and you have to give money now. You know? So if someone says, Prabhu, please give Lakshmi for Krishna's service, you have $100, you give 10 and say, Prabhu, that's all I have. And people think you're so exalted. He only had $10 and he gave away $10. He is now a beggar. But only you know you got $100 else. But don't do that. Because when you voluntarily suffer, in other words, you are being put into difficulty. But that is what satisfies Krishna. Lord Shiva was prepared to help the Devatas to churn the milk ocean. Why? Because if he didn't swallow that terrible poison, what was the name of that poison? Hala hala poison, right? All these poisons sound very poisonous.
Weird.
Huh? Yeah, they sound weird, yeah. Hala hala poison, it sounds poisonous. So he was prepared to actually drink poison. And because of his great potency, the poison got caught only in his throat. And that's why he's known as Nilakanta, right? So that is the greatness of Lord Shiva. But the reason why he drank it, he says, is because we have to voluntarily suffer to alleviate the sufferings of the people in general. This is considered Parama Aradhanam Taddihi. By the opinion of Lord Shiva, who is the greatest personality and one of the great devotees of the Lord, this is the highest method of worshipping Krishna. When you actually sacrifice your time, your effort, not just for yourself, but more for the person next to you. Today, Prabhu and Mataji have sacrificed so much of time and effort so that we could come together. They could easily have invited me personally, quietly, and have prasadam. Why to have all of you here? Right? Now you have to feed so much more people. But no, voluntarily they have suffered so that all of us can benefit today by hearing Bhagavatam. You see the point? That is the greatness of devotees. And that is why it is stated so nicely that great devotees always give up what they have for others. And Lord Shiva is a good example. Govinda is a very good example. What about Brahmaji? If you recall in Bhagavatam, Brahmaji suffered and went through years and years and years of tapas just so that he could understand the origin of who he was and he could perform the duty of secondary creation. That's what he did. All his prayers in the 3rd canto, 9th chapter, is really about that. It's not about anything else actually. Not about anything else. So we must learn to sacrifice. Sacrifice time, Prabhus. Sacrifice money. Sacrifice your position. Sacrifice your pride. Many times in Bhagavatam, great devotees have sacrificed their pride actually. But more than all of this, please sacrifice our fault-finding mentality. That is very important. Because when we don't sacrifice our fault-finding mentality, we will engage always in criticizing. And that will never satisfy Krishna. And it will loko yam karma bandhanaha. It will bind us, Prabhus. It will bind us, Matajis. A good example of this, is Ramchandra Puri from Chaitanya Charitamrita. In Antya Leela chapter 8, Ramchandra Puri was actually the god, he was the disciple of Madhavendra Puri and the god brother of Ishwar Puri. Can you imagine how exalted he must be? But he had one problem. He loved to find fault. He came for programs only to find fault. He would travel to meet sannyasis only to find fault. Can you imagine that? That's really bad. Imagine you come to the house today and actually you've come to find out, okay, who is not listening? Who is sleeping? Who is looking like they are listening but they are not? Prabhu has cooked this prasadam, less salt, too much sugar, too much this, too much that. Then there is no sacrifice on our part. There is only criticism. Ramchandra Puri had this very interesting way of criticizing people. One day he came to see Mahaprabhu at Jagannath Puri. And Paramanand Puri, who is also his god brother, was there. Then Jagadananda Pandit, who was a great sannyasi, also came. And then he brought prasad from Jagannath temple. And he said, Mahaprabhu, Paramanand Puri, Ramchandra Puri, let's all have prasad. So immediately what Ramchandra Puri did was, he took a little bit, then he stopped, and he got up, and he took the prasad. He said, Jagadananda Pandit, sit down. I'm going to serve you. So far so good, right? It's very good, isn't it? Because people are coming here serving. He served him. Now when he said, enough, I'm sannyasi, I don't eat so much. No. You have to take more. You have to take more. Now in Abu Dhabi that happens very often. You have to take more. You have to take more. So he's giving. And Jagannath Pandit was very happy. Oh, my such a nice devotee is giving me more and more prasad. So he took it. After he finished his meal, Ramchandra Puri stands up and speaks very loudly. Actually, sannyasis should have better control of the tongue. They should not be eating so much. They should not be, when people say that you please take something, they should have the sense control to say, no, this is enough. I'm not saying you should do that later. But I'm saying that that's what Ramchandra Puri did. So what he did, Chaitanya Charitamrita said is, his tactic was, call the devotees over, feed them nicely, and then criticize them for overeating. It's too much, isn't it? It's really too much. So please don't do that. Don't do that. Because that is not a sacrifice. You're sacrificing your devotional service if you do that. Please don't do that kind of sacrifice. So Ramchandra Puri did that. And not only did he find fault with the sannyasis, he started keeping a file on every devotee. What time they eat, do they follow four regulative principles, do they attend Mangala Arati? Can you imagine? And then he started keeping one file only on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was very particular. Is Mahaprabhu attending morning programs? Where does he go? How much is he eating? Mahaprabhu heard this from all the other devotees. The other devotees became very scared of Ramchandra Puri. When he came, right, everyone would stop eating and they will walk away. They were afraid. So one day, but see, Ramchandra Puri was trying to find some fault in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but somehow he could not. Somehow he could not. Until one day came. He walked into Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's the house where he was, and guess what he saw? He saw ants on the floor. Now the moment he saw ants on the floor, he saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he spoke very loudly. He said, where there are ants, there must be excess sugar. Where there is excess sugar, there must be excess sweets. You know, in ISKCON we love our sweets, isn't it? Huh? all of us at some point, right, will either die very gloriously remembering Krishna or die of diabetes. There's no two ways. It will happen actually. So, Ramchandra Puri said, there are so many ants because there are sweets. It's very sweet, there's sugar. And there are sweets there because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was eating too much sweets last night. No one cleaned the house and the ants have come. And now how can a sannyasi eat so much sweets? Mahaprabhu was amused actually. He was thinking, I've heard so much about Ramchandra Puri criticizing. Today, for the first time, I'm experiencing it. I'm finding it out now. So he said, now no one should eat like that. You should not be eating like that. Prabhupada writes in the purport a very important thing. Prabhupada says that Ramchandra Puri imagined that actually having ants in the house means there is sweets. Sometimes ants just come through. Sometimes insects also come through. It doesn't mean it is like that. Like sometimes, we have Tulsi Maharani. She's growing very well and we all say that we are pure devotees because she loves our devotion. And then if she's not growing well, we say we're all fallen people. Prabhupada was asked the same question. The devotees said, we are trying so hard, doing Mangalarati, everything, we're trying to take care of Tulsi Maharani, but she's not growing. We must be very fallen. Prabhupada said, I think she doesn't get enough sun. That's it. She's not getting enough sun. That's all. You put her in sun, she'll be fine. So sometimes we imagine and then we find the fault. And when we do that, right, we are not sacrificing anything. We are actually binding ourselves to this world. So as devotees, not only must we sacrifice our time for Krishna, not only do we sacrifice our money and our energy for Krishna, we must also be prepared to sacrifice our false ego when it comes to Krishna. We must be able to sacrifice our activities not only for Krishna, but like Lord Shiva did, also for the devotees of Krishna. Don't only be very, very selfish to sacrifice for Krishna, and devotees you just don't care. To hell with them. No. Krishna loves devotees more than he loves himself. If you sacrifice for devotees, loko yam karma bandhanaha, it will never catch us. We will be free. And wherever you are working from 9 to 5, 10 to 10, whatever time it may be, when you perform that work, start your work by telling Krishna, Krishna, this work is meant for you. I may have signed my employment contract with a boss, but my real boss is Krishna. And every morning I sign my employment contract with Krishna. I'm on a contract basis, day by day with Krishna. Every day I sign the contract with Krishna in the morning, and I will deliver the best I can. I will sacrifice whatever I have to because this is for Krishna. When the Lakshmi comes, when your pay comes at the end of the month, whatever happens, you take some portion of it and you give it to Krishna. Do you know how we offer bhoga? We don't take the whole pot and put it there, isn't it? We take a little bit from everything and we offer it to Krishna, and when you put it back, the whole pot has become Krishnaized. Right? So, whatever money that you have, if $5,000 is your bank, is your salary, you take something and you give it to Krishna. And your entire money is not loko yam karma bandhanaha. It is free. Of course, don't be stingy poker and put $1 when you are earning 5,000. Please don't do that. Krishna will see it. He will know it. This one is too much. This one is cheating the system. That's what he's trying to do. Don't do that. Right? Give generously to Krishna and you will never be at a loss. And the last point is, remember Ramchandra Puri, not for the right reasons. Sacrifice the finding fault mentality. Please, do that. Because that is a sacrifice that really, really pleases Krishna. Krishna becomes very pleased when you do that. You know, when Prithu Maharaj and Indra were fighting with each other to become who is going to be holding the position of 100 sacrifices for Ashwamedha, right? Remember, Indra kept coming and stealing the sacrificial horse as a sannyasi. Until Prithu Maharaj got tired of it, he wanted to kill him. But somehow he got away. And then Brahmaji told him, enough, 99 is good as 100. Now, when Prithu Maharaj performed his 99th Ashwamedha sacrifice, Krishna appeared there. He appeared. And when he appeared, Indra he brought along. Now Indra and Prithu were very, very upset with each other for obvious reasons. After Lord Vishnu really praises, he praises King Prithu, then Indra became very ashamed of his actions. He fell at the feet of Prithu. Prithu Maharaj did not say, "Aha, I told you so." You know, sometimes when we make a mistake, we go to someone and say, "I'm very sorry." Sometimes the person says, "See, now you know I'm right, right?" It's happened very often, isn't it? Right? Because we don't sacrifice our false ego, you see, when such things happen. But when Indra and Prithu met each other, Indra fell at the lotus feet of Prithu, but Prithu Maharaj picked up Indra and embraced him. He embraced him. And they both apologized to each other. And Prabhupada said, they both adjusted their envy. They adjusted the cause of their envy to each other. This is why Prabhupada says we created the Krishna consciousness movement. It was created to stop envy in our hearts. And that is the greatest sacrifice you can make for Krishna. Ramchandra Puri criticized Mahaprabhu. And you know what Mahaprabhu did after that? He decided that anytime I go to anybody's house, my food now will be cut by half. And the devotees became so upset with Ramchandra Puri. They tried very hard to talk to Mahaprabhu. Why must you listen to this nonsense man? But you know what Mahaprabhu said? He said, what harm is, what wrong has he done? He said a fact. I'm a sannyasi. Why should I eat so much? So he's right. See the mood, the humility of Mahaprabhu. He did not take into heart that someone criticized him because he sacrificed his ego. Mahaprabhu has no ego, but he showed us how we should receive fault finding. Sacrifice your pride, and in that way, all the situations will not catch you. If you do not sacrifice your pride, if you do not sacrifice your time, if you don't sacrifice your false ego, every activity that we do, loko yam karma bandhanaha. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki, Tathai Gaura Premanande. Thank you, Prabhu and Matajis, for your time. Very happy to see you. Shall we do some kirtan now, Prabhu?
Make up for the lost time in the morning as well.
Yes, let's do some kirtan.
No questions.
I'm not asking because I'm thinking we should do kirtan. But if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. Yes, Prabhu. Let's listen. Yes, Prabhu.
Practical thing is, probably as you said, in the morning class you said, we know everything in heart of our heart while you are going wrong.
Yes.
So for example, day to day in devotional services, even within the home, within the same home, Prabhuji Mataji's, like when we always have some choice, our personal choice that we should do like this, or with this small starting from the big, that it should be like that. And we always get entangled in that doing show, and the whole mood get evaporated. Rather, so such things, how we, because it is so displeasing to Lord, as you said in the morning and here also. Now, keeping that at a center, that our these very small differences or big differences creating a lot of distaste to the Krishna and disservice. So, for such cases in day-to-day life, both in congregation level as well as in the family level, if you can give some tips, Prabhu.
It's a very nice point, Prabhu. It happens very often. I don't know how it is here, but in Singapore, the greatest examples of disagreement between devotees will happen during festival. When they're all decorating and someone says the red flower is better, someone says white, someone says whatever. Good news is I'm colorblind, so I never get caught by this thing. But that is where people get caught up. But the best way to do it, Prabhu, whether it is festivals, whether it is at home, someone should have a bigger heart to give in. Someone should have a bigger heart not to fight. By giving in, we don't lose anything. Sometimes if you are in a position of adhikar, where you are in charge of something, you may have to sacrifice your relationship with the person by telling him this is not the way to do it. There is a way to do it. This is not etiquette. Leaders sometimes have to do that. And we are not very popular sometimes. But we have to do it so that they learn how not to do the things in the wrong way. So that is also one scenario where we have to do that. But sometimes if it's between husband and wife, someone has to give it. You won't die if your wife is doing in a certain way and you insist and she insists something. You won't die, just give in. It's okay. What is there? You in fact you actually gain more mastery over the senses. Of course, if it's very unreasonable, you will have to put your foot down. But I'm assuming that as devotees, we are not being unreasonable. But sometimes there's a clash of ego. Sometimes it's I told you so, right? I told you this is not right. Then don't get into that fight, or don't become defensive. That also we must learn to sacrifice. They are small things, but like you correctly said, they make a difference in our family life also. And when children see how parents give and take, how parents are ready to give in even when something may appear to be difficult, their respect for parents and the understanding of Krishna consciousness and tolerance actually deepens. We must set that example. No one loses by tolerating. No one loses by giving and taking. No one loses by becoming humble. Is that helpful, Prabhu?
Prabhu,
Yes, Prabhu.
just can you repeat the characteristics of the sacrifice? What I have written, it's not easy. The sacrifice should be voluntary. The gain is greater than loss.
Yes.
And depend on Krishna for sacrifice. And what other point did I miss?
I guess towards the end, we also mentioned, Prabhu, that sacrifice also means sacrificing our false ego.
Okay, so what I have written in the category of what we can sacrifice.
Yes,
We can
that is
sacrifice
what we
material
can.
possessions.
Yeah.
We can sacrifice ego,
Yes.
fault finding, and
Yes.
independence.
Yes, Prabhu. That's all. That's all. You've got it actually.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you for the wonderful class, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Today you talk about the sacrifice time, and also in the morning we heard you have a time and free time.
Yeah, a little bit back because of this range. Yes, Prabhu.
And we also hear on the third chapter, Krishna will say that we don't need to pamper the senses.
Yes.
Whenever in the first, when its seed is there, you need to, Mahapapu Mahana. You should not caught up in Raga and Dvesha, and that if you don't diminish that, then it will become a habit. And also, like in day to day, like when you go to social medias and when you read about the politics and newspaper and this way, we know that is not contributing anything constructive. While we spend 10 minutes on the shloka or one chapter on Bhagavatam, take 1 hour and a half. But that phase will be there for the few days. Like after that, we will get carried away with this current of the other stuff, and we will be coming back when we want to give some class or something. So how we can be consistent?
I think you speak loudly and move it away. Yeah. Yes, Prabhu. Yeah. So the point being,
so how we can avoid that social media or whatever the non-constructive thing to become a constructive, and so that it can also the time which we are spending, that can also be like it for the higher cause, and we will be always in that mode, not to going back to the social media and just wasting.
social media is a big problem, isn't it, Prabhu? Mataji? We keep looking at it, even if there's nothing else, we just look at it. And we don't end the day by not looking at it. We look at it. We start the day looking at it. We see it more often than we see Krishna even. But we have to make that effort, Prabhu. That it is known in Bhagavatam as Granatascha Swachestitam. Granatascha Swachestitam means by our own endeavor, we have to try to make a stop, or at least reduce it. When Krishna sees you're making an effort, then he will actually give you the strength to actually follow through your conviction. So there must be determination. That the determination and the conviction to reduce certain things which are not helpful for Krishna consciousness, that is your sacrifice. That is your sacrifice. And good sadhana helps us to get past these difficulties. Sadhu Sangha also helps us to get past the difficulties. But we must be able to be open to the devotees to say, this is my challenge, I need some help. And therefore that's where you have to sacrifice your pride and your false ego. Is that helpful to you?
Yes. I told you also to, like in the class,
Huh?
when we follow the
When we
instruction,
follow,
when
yeah.
we follow the instruction,
Yeah.
blessing will flow.
Yes.
And we hear so many instructions, not only from the lecturers, from the Maharaj itself when we meet him, but there is some kind of an inertia which is inside that will drag us away from, or maybe the carelessness that we had, or the sweetness of this material, so-called material things, what we do. We try to avoid the devotional things, we try to get engaged in something, but engage in something and we will say that, okay, we don't have a time to do this thing. But in the end, we will know that we are the loser, not anybody else.
Yeah.
And we are making a disgrace and also not faithful towards spirituality.
Yes.
So how to overcome this?
That's why the line in 8.1.14 is important. You use the word in the end. So what Prabhupada is saying, in the beginning, we should start our activities for Krishna. So we have to change the way we think, Prabhu. Don't wait till the end to regret. But in the beginning, when we start our activity for Krishna, we will lose taste for all these other things. The beginning matters. Yeah. So that's where we really have to push. In the beginning, it won't be easy. But what is easy in the beginning? As adults, everything is difficult in the beginning. Better we make it difficult for Krishna, right, than to just make it difficult for some material enjoyment. So that's how a devotee should think. Is that helpful? Very nice. Thank you, Prabhu, Mataji's. Let's chant Krishna's name. Oh, sorry. Yes. Yes, Mataji. Yes, yes.
See, fault finding we do. Sometimes with our children also, they do something repeatedly.
Yeah.
So when we correct them, is it fault finding?
No, that's not fault finding because it's your duty to correct them. Because they're doing something that's not good for them. And it's our duty, it's the duty of a teacher to find fault with students, not for the sake of finding fault, but actually to try and improve them. So children are they're under us, they're our responsibility. So trying to improve them is the important thing. Of course, if we get into the habit where we always find fault with them and nothing is ever good coming from them, then it will destroy their self-esteem. It will make them feel that there's nothing good about me. Every time mother is finding fault with me, I'm useless. And sometimes they give up also. So there are many ways for us to tell them to do something rather than just pointing out a mistake. Maybe explaining to them why this may not be so good for them is better, rather than just trying to short circuit the process and say, no, don't do this, do that, do this, do that, do this. I think after a while, when children reach a certain age, they don't want to hear that all the time. They'd rather have a conversation with you to understand why this is not correct, rather than saying don't do it. So that is probably more useful, Mataji, but it's not wrong. A parent doesn't do that. Actually, even between husband and wife, the husband and wife, their duty is to help each other. If they cannot help to find the fault in each other, so to speak, that this is not good for you, in private, confidentially, then who is going to help each other? But the problem in the material world is sometimes we don't use the right language and we don't have the right motive. So we actually become envious of our wives and husbands sometimes, and then we find fault with them. Is that helpful, Mati?
One more thing is envy thing.
Envy.
Sometimes it's not easy to let go things. So how to practice that in our daily life? How to let go of things, forgive and forget and move on.
Yeah.
How to practice it?
It will happen, Mataji, when we realize that first we are not perfect. Should I use the other one? He has a life of his own.
I thought this was good. It sounds good, but
Yeah. Is it okay? Maybe sharper on the treble. That will be helpful. Mataji, what was I saying just now? Yeah, you were talking about envy or...
Envy and letting go.
Yeah. Actually, Bhagavatam tells us the reason for envy is because of pride. We are proud of what we think we are, and that's why we can't give up. That's why we're envious of people. We cannot forgive someone because we think we're only right, and they are not right. And we're very proud of that. So, Bhagavatam in 7th canto, 15th chapter, in that 15th chapter, Bhagavatam clearly tells us that if you want to stop envy, you stop your pride. If you stop thinking that you are better than others, your envy will naturally go. You will forgive people because people make mistakes, so do you. And if you think that way, and that you believe you're not perfect, then there is no question of pride. And then gradually envy will leave the heart. Envy also comes because we are not satisfied with our position. And someone else is doing better than us, and we are envious of them. So that lack of satisfaction also leads to envy. So we must learn to accept that whatever Krishna has given to us is enough for us. Whatever position we are in this world is just right for us. If we think that way, eventually in time envy will leave us. This is Bhagavatam. Is that helpful, Mati? Very, very important points for all of us actually. Shall we chant Krishna's names?
Like I've heard in previous lectures from Prabhuji that Krishna is present everywhere. So whenever you step over any object or like any stone, what happens to us? Like do we still go to hell?
No. The good news about Krishna being everywhere is that even though he is everywhere, in that situation where he is personally in his form, his swarup, then you cannot cross over him. But if he's in your heart, right? Because you are living, I also should not cross over you. I should say, Prabhu, please move, or I'm sorry, I have to go this way. But for inanimate objects is all right. So you can cross over this, it's all right. But of course, if you can walk this way, it's better. Does that help?
Yes.
Very nice. Very nice. Now we have to chant. So let's just sing before it becomes too late. Please chant as loudly as you can within permissible limits. I don't know how much volume you can go for this, Prabhu. We want you to continue to stay in your house. You know?
We have already told you.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Radhe Gopal Ji ki. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
संकीर्तन यज्ञ की, हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र युग धर्म की, ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की, आई गौर प्रेमानंद, कृष्ण गीता प्रभु की। What a joy! What a joy to play with him. You're blessed, Prabhu. So nice. I think there's a cake cutting ceremony now.
Yes.
And I think there are two. Okay, it's Jay Verma. Who's Jay? Jay Verma. Oh, and who's the second one? This is Gosundar.
Hare Krishna.
So are we doing the cake cutting song? Everybody come forward. I don't know how you all sing it here.
Singapore way. No, your way. You do it your way. We don't have a way. Your way is the way. Your way is the way. Go ahead.
We don't know Singapore way, Prabhu. You sing Singapore way. We want to.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, are we ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Hare Krishna to you. Hare Krishna to you. Hare Krishna to you. Hare Krishna to you. May Krishna bless you. May Krishna bless you. May Krishna bless you. May Krishna bless you. May you never take birth again. May you never take birth again. May you never take birth again. Hare Krishna to you. Let's sing. Hare Krishna.
Another announcement. Prabhu is son. He's having a birthday on 14th March.
Okay, hold on. What's up with Prabhu's son?
Actually, Gaur Purnima was his birthday.
Gaur Purnima was his birthday. What an auspicious day. And where is he now?
He is not here.
Okay. So we pray for him also.
One quick kirtan for him.
Huh? One quick kirtan for him.
Only 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
He's 15 years old.
Prabhu, they're going to start getting hungry. Not very good.
I'm not starting. I'm not starting.
One time we can chant.
I drank so much water. I'm too badly for it.
We can just chant one time.
They warmed up now only, Prabhu.
Isn't it? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much.
His praise Devakinandan Prabhuji ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Prabhu, so the sound was all right?
Anyway, sound right person reaching to them.
Wonderful. Spoken like a devotee.
I don't know this question.